Sex and happiness both enrich our lives, yet it's surprising how few people can honestly say that they enjoy regular and fulfilling sex or describe themselves and their lives as happy. Host Laurie Handlers helps you to experience real intimacy and happiness. You'll laugh a little, learn a little, and we hope put a smile on your face and a smile in your life. Now here's Laurie.
Hi everybody, this is Laurie Handlers, and you're listening to another episode of Sex and Happiness, a show about sex and happiness. I always say this, I'm going to say it again, it's about your sex and your happiness, and my sex and my happiness. And to me, they're totally connected, and anyone who says they have one and not the other, I don't believe them. So this show today is going to be another one about the same thing. We're going to be talking today about connecting the cock to the heart, heart-cock connection. And I'm going to be speaking with one of my dear friends, Tyran Mowbray, and we're talking about something that I believe Tyran is an expert at. And we laugh about it sometimes because I always say to Tyran that he's my hope for men. So Tyran, welcome to Sex and Happiness.
Thanks, Laurie. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's great to have you. And, I invited you on the show this time now, actually, because of some rants you were going on Facebook recently that I saw. And they had to do with men and vulnerability and still being a man, like being a man who's able to cry, being a man who's able to say his feelings, being a man who's able to be transparent about who he is and also still be powerful. So before we talk directly about that, how did you start out? Like, how did you get to be a guy who's like on Facebook and Instagram and sort of traveling the world and knowing about how it is to be powerful, but also how to be vulnerable? Like, did you start out like this? Did your parents raise you like this?
They tried. I guess you could say I was lucky in some regard. I had a very loving, emotional mother, and I had a very hard, determined father. And I guess because of that experience, I was kind of initiated into strong, hard masculinity by my dad. Don't cry, get up, push hard, work hard. Drink a lot, party hard, like those types of things. My mum calls my dad Peter Pan. He's the man, he's the boy that never grew up. He's 50 something years old now, and he still does what he did 30 years ago. And my mum is like, she's just this devotional ball of love that just accepts everyone as they are. And, I definitely got my mum's heart, and I definitely got my dad's balls, I guess you could say. And, but I was torn, having that heart, having that soft, tender heart, falling in love very easily when I was young. I used to plaster my walls with I love LF or CK or whoever it was that month or that term at school. So I always had this big heart where I loved to love, and I loved to feel special and wanted and help other people feel like that. But quite often was rejected a lot in those early days. And as I matured, I grew up into this more, footy playing kind of, I don't know how to say, like footy playing, out beer drinking, drug taking kind of man that just did his thing. And, and I was celebrated for that at my football clubs, and my dad always congratulated me when I got really, really drunk, or when I said that I drank a lot of alcohol. And, it was a big initiation to be able to go to the pub with my dad and his mates. They used to go to the football and get into fights. And so to be one of the boys was like, it was something I always yearned for, but it never fully felt 100% me, and then at the same time, not like being too soft, being too gentle, like being too emotional, crying when there was a movie on, felt really emasculating. I can't remember how to say that word. Anyway, like it felt really like immature and soft and weak. So I was always torn between these two places, and my desire to be a man, you know, be the provider and do this and do that, sent me down some very unethical paths. And you know, I did a lot of bad shit. I sold drugs. I, you know, wrote my car off drink driving 3 times. When I had friends in the car, I used and, you know, emotionally abused women, manipulated them to, you know, get sex, and then kind of shut them out pretty quickly afterwards. And I just, I had a really closed heart, you know, and I was cheated on when I was 16 by my first girlfriend. And so from there, I just kind of shut women out. And I worked in construction. I played footy, you know, I was just your everyday guy. And then I had my first relationship at 23, like my first real, you know, somewhat long-term relationship. Yeah. And that took me to a depth of intimacy that I hadn't experienced before, you know, this actual devotional love to some extent. And it was beautiful. And then, you know, we broke up and we had our issues and stuff. And again, I got really heartbroken, and she had a new boyfriend a few weeks later. And so I felt betrayed, and I shut again, and I shut harder this time than I did the first time when I was 16. Yeah. And I was hell-bent on revenge, but revenge wasn't, you know, on her. It wasn't, you know, it was just hell-bent on women. And I went and worked out in the mines. I drank myself into oblivion. I was going to the gym twice a day and doing all the protein, creatine stuff to get big and strong. But my heart was just ignored and shut down and completely not allowed space because it was too hard. It hurt too much. Yeah. Loving hurt. That was my association. To love someone meant to be hurt. So why would I do that? And then it got to a point where I had a breakdown. I was, I don't know, having sex with lots of girls on Tinder and going out all the time drinking. And I got to a point where I was masturbating to porn 4 times a day out in the mines. And I couldn't get an erection without a woman or pornography. Wow. And I was 27 years old. And I kind of realized, I was like, this is not okay. Yeah. You know, like this is not normal. And if it is normal, it shouldn't be. You know, it's not natural. It's not natural to, at 27 years old, to not be able to get an erection without porn or a woman. Correct. And so, this kind of kickstarted something in my mind of like, I have to change something, because like, what the fuck does this mean for me in 10 years or 20 years? Mm-hmm. I started my own journey around my sexuality, and I stopped watching porn, and I stopped masturbating for a little while, and that kind of rebooted my system. And then, different things happened. I went to Thailand for a friend's wedding, and I went, you know, I knew what was going to happen, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go and have my own 11 days there and train for Muay Thai and do this and do that. And I did that for the first 10 days. And then I went to Koh Samui for the wedding, and the rest of my trip turned into a 3-week bender with all of my friends. We went to a full moon party. We did all the things that you do in Thailand as a young Australian and international like boy or youngster. And it got to my last day in Thailand. I was there by myself. I was like, right, I'm going to go to the bar. I'm going to have some drinks. I'm going to meet some people. It's my last night. Everyone else had left. All my friends had gone. Mm-hmm. And I went down there and I had 2 drinks. They were really strong because I was like, you know, I've been drinking for 3 weeks. I need more alcohol because I'm going to, you know, I've built up a tolerance and all that shit, all this ego macho stuff. And I just got really drunk really quick. And these voices started in my head, and I started judging everyone down at the beach, and I started comparing myself. And I was like, it was going crazy basically. Mm. And I couldn't get past this point in me that was like, you are miserably unhappy and you're still doing the same thing. And so I walked down the beach to a different bar. I was like, I'll change my environment. I'll go to a different bar, and I'll just walk straight up to someone the first moment I get there and talk and break this bullshit. And I didn't. I got to the next bar and I froze, and I sat on the couch, and I felt like everyone was looking at me and judging me, and I was judging them. And I basically had a breakdown. I basically just had a mental breakdown. I was obviously coming down off of a couple of weeks bender in Thailand and a cocktail of different concoctions, and I just cried, and I cried for a day and a half. I cried for the rest of the time that I was in Thailand. It was like a day and a half, and I just hated my life. I hated me. I hated the man, this so-called man at 27 years old that I was representing. It was nothing like I wanted to be, and I'd known it for a long time. The friendships that I had, I wanted more from my friendships. I wanted more from this, but I was just seen as Tyran, the party guy, or Moby. Invite him out for a good time, but don't really ask him for anything because he's not on an emotional level that will meet you. And I knew that I was, but I never showed that to anyone.
I just want to say to you, I mean, it sounds like it sounds like you brought this all to a perfect storm.
Yeah. Just before 28, the Saturn return, if you believe in astrology.
You amplified your pain and your suffering and your bullshit just loud enough and deep enough and dark enough to kick your butt. Yeah.
And I mean, I definitely, there were moments when I thought about death and thought about who would care, who would care if I died right now, I don't like myself right now. So why the fuck should anyone else like me? Right. I definitely had those thoughts, but I don't know. I never got to any action steps, which I'm very happy about. But yeah, and it, thank you. And it turned, I got to a point, I was like, I need to change something. I can't continue doing this. And I went back to the mines and I was walking off the bus and we're all in a big line, 50 people on a bus, and you get out of the bus and you'll walk to your little room and you're all like ants in an ant line. And I just stopped. I was like, and three guys hit me and what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, what am I doing here? I hate this job. I hate this environment. Why am I here? And so I rang the boss and I quit and I flew home and I went back and I moved in with mum and dad for a little while. I bought a one-way ticket to Europe because I knew that I could not survive where I was with the environment that I had. And what I had created for myself was not what I wanted, but I didn't know what I wanted. And I didn't have any points of reference in my life for people that had anything that I wanted. Like I had some guys that had some things, but they all represented for me a pretty immature masculine energy. And there was no one that really inspired me. And so I just left. I left for 13 months and, did my gap year at 28 years old and learned about myself.
Is that when you say gap year, is that the thing that happens to people who were part of the British Commonwealth at some point?
Yeah. So the gap year is usually what a lot of young people do. They finish school and they have a gap year. They have a year off to, take a year off of school and go and explore the world or explore themselves or go work or whatever and just before they go and study. But I left school and went in.
They can go anywhere, and that was the British Commonwealth. At some point, they get so Australians can go up to England, English go, and Canadians and whatever. Everybody connected that way. Yeah, I never knew you called it the gap year.
Yeah, it's meant to be the gap between school and university.
Okay, so all right, we're gonna take a break there because I'm just gonna say, I mean, your life has taken a drastic turn to the better.
yeah, you can say that. Yeah, definitely.
But the point needs to be made here that you wouldn't be able to talk about the things that you do or influence people the way you do had you not been through all that really immature masculine stuff. For all intents and purposes, when young men are growing up, that they're taught to be the way you were, and you were kind of a master at it.
I was pretty good at it, that's for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like you look like somebody who probably was a party boy, and somebody who could get over this way or that, based on looks or based on how you built your body up or based on the markings on your body or your haircut. Like there's a lot of things that somebody could like look at you and go like, well, look at that dude, and actually that's what I did when I first saw you. I saw you at the airport on the North Island in New Zealand, and I was like, well, I wonder who this guy is. Very interesting, like look interesting, like somebody, you want to talk to and go like, what are you up to? So, but I feel like you took a very tremendous turn, and that's what we'll talk about next. Like not only how you took the turn, but what you're providing now to men who are doomed to be on the same course or something similar to what you learned, what you tolerated, because there wasn't any other choice until there was.
Yeah, sure. I can't wait.
Yeah. So we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about what Tyran's up to now. And it's quite astounding, amazing. He really is my hope in a lot of ways for men. I feel like he can provide a role model for men who really could be hopeless, either in the way that they don't know how to feel, or they feel too much, and that's what we're going to talk about. That's why we're talking about connecting the cock to the heart. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned. We're coming back. Did you ever stop to think that love is your birthright? That you don't need to earn it or prove it? You just need to live it. I'm personally inviting you to the path of true love, power, and freedom. If you're ready to enliven your soul through conscious sexuality and dive deeply into profound ritual that frees your heart, I'm inviting you to join us for the Spiritual Sexual Shamanic Experience. This is better known to most of you as the ISTA Level 1 training. I am regularly leading these courses along with a team of accomplished facilitators all around the world. As a matter of fact, these trainings have taken place in 34 countries. For information on when I'm leading, go to butterflyworkshops.com. Or for a full schedule, you can go to schooloftemplearts.org. Please consider this invitation seriously, because love and freedom are your natural state of being.
Are you wondering what book to read to jumpstart your life? Get the best from relationships? Attain the deepest feelings of intimacy? Do you want the best sex along with great happiness? Get your copy of Sex and Happiness, The Tantric Laws of Intimacy by Laurie Handlers right now. You'll learn how to make love in the unknown, take the performance anxiety and reaching a goal out of sex. You'll learn subtle ways of communication and really important practices to empower you in dealing with an intimate partner. You'll let go of blame and struggle. Doesn't this sound great? Sex and Happiness puts the innocence back into sex and gives Tantra the respect it deserves. Take charge of your life, physically, emotionally, and spiritually with Sex and Happiness by Laurie Handlers, only $19.99 paperback and $14.99 ebook. Order your copy today by going to butterflyworkshops.com. That's butterflyworkshops.com for your copy of Sex and Happiness.
My question for people right now is, if you're a woman who could use a little zest and zing in your arousal response, or maybe you know women or a woman who could use this, because many women say that their feelings of desire, arousal, and sexual satisfaction don't happen as naturally or as often as they'd like. So I want to tell you about Zestra, because Zestra was developed to meet this much-needed option for women. Zestra's safe and a patented blend of botanical oils and extracts, and it's created to help women have increased sexual sensations. Zestra comes in convenient single-dose personal packets. Each packet keeps the essential arousal oils and extracts free, fresh, and safe from light. And with application of Zestra, it starts to work within 3 to 5 minutes. And at about 10 minutes, there's something called the Zestra Rush. And that can last up to about 45 minutes. The great news is that Zestra can be used as frequently as you like during each sexual experience. Now, I'm somebody who believes that all women deserve sexual satisfaction. That's why I do this show, in case you hadn't noticed. So I believe that men and women deserve sexual satisfaction. So if you're a woman who isn't getting that kind of arousal response that you want, please call 877-426-8047. That's 877-426-8047. And please remember to say you heard about Zestra from Laurie Handlers on the Sex and Happiness Show.
You're listening to Sex and Happiness. I'm Laurie Handlers, your host, and today I'm speaking with Tyran Mowbray, who's a really dear friend of mine and somebody that I love very much, and I'm excited about the work that he's doing in the world. And so, Tyran, let's talk about, the radical shift a little bit. Let's not go too much into the history of it, but let's just talk about it a little bit, and then, where you're at now. Like, where did that lead to, and what are you providing now, especially for men?
Yeah, so basically, on my journey of self-discovery, I did yoga and meditation, and I got into consciousness spills, and I did retreats and workshops, and I started to really explore my edges and push my own envelope. I hitchhiked across Europe, and I walked across countries, and I did everything that made me feel uncomfortable, and I realized on the other side of that I don't die, that parts of me die, but I don't physically die. And parts of my emotional body die, parts of my stories die. But at the end of the day, I'm actually, well, to be honest, I'm actually fucking indestructible. And once I moved through certain stories that I had, I was like, well, what else isn't real? And, that just led me on a deeper journey. And now basically, and for me, sexuality was a huge thing, a big thing. I loved having sex with women. I loved having sex. I loved sexuality. I loved, everything to do with connection and intimacy. And that was one of my ways to experience love in that moment of my life. And so but I was, like I said, premature ejaculation, porn addiction, erection issues. They were all things that were still a little bit present in my life. And so I went into a journey with that, because I feel like it's one of the most deeply rooted causes of anxiety or depression or insecurity in men is our sexuality. Like, how are we big enough? Do we last long enough? Did she come? Did we create enough space? Does she want to make love to me again? Like whatever it is, and in a world where we pretty much get our sex education from porn, it doesn't really teach us about the heart. So we run too much animal, too much cock, and not enough heart, or we're too scared of our animal because, we're told that it's too much. And so we play out Mr. Nice Guy in the heart, and we actually never stand for anything in the world. And that has been my journey, like I was running animal all the time, and I kind of gave that up for a little while and went into the heart and learned how to expose that, learned how to love deeply, and let my walls get broken and shattered, and realize that actually nothing happens. I feel, don't get me wrong, like I feel lots, and I cry, and I emotionally release, and I express all my feelings, but all that does is actually increase my capacity to love, not just others, yes, but actually myself.
Yes. You reminded me, I was at I think I was at the California Tantra Festival a few years ago, and Dean, who we both know, was leading a puja, and I sat down with someone, and the question was, if you could tell your younger self anything, what would you tell your younger self? And I looked at my partner and I said, I would tell my younger self not to worry about getting my heart broken over and over and over again, because at this point in my life, my heart is so big. It has capacity for more than I ever imagined. And I would still do it over and over and over again. Like nothing could stop me. Like it's a blessing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I totally get it. Yeah. So you got your heart broken. You have more of a capacity to love.
Yeah. And so then I started, and I have this ability, like I was Moby, I was the one that always did nudie runs, or I was a bit wild and I always did dumb shit. And I always spoke about things that no one would speak about. And I did it in the past to be seen and be heard, right? To be the one, to be the most outrageous. And when I kind of got on the other side of a large chunk of my journey after a couple of years, I was like, well, what's my offering? What do I want to do, and what do I want to bring? And I realized that I do have this shamelessness, this sense, this ability to talk about things. I'm not scared to talk about the fact that I had premature ejaculation, or that I had erectile issues, or that I still have erectile issues at the moment, because I've just been coming through some heartbreak. And so, my erections are in conjunction with that. So if my heart's not turned on, my cock doesn't get turned on. And I'm not ashamed to talk about that. For me, it's like the less we talk about it, the more it goes in the shadow, and the more it's in the shadow, the more depression, the more anxiety, the more fear, the more, like, the less intimacy and the less love we can experience. So why would I want to not talk about it if I know that once I've spoken about it, I can experience a deeper sense of fulfillment, one, inside of myself, and two, with whoever I'm sharing this with. And why would I not want to share that with the whole world? Why would I not want to have intimate encounters with the entire world on different levels, And so that's kind of my mission now. It's just like to make as much noise as I possibly can about all the stuff that no one really wants to talk about, and create this, where you and I are in a love revolution and in a heart revolution, with some of the circles that we're involved in. It's like, but I knew that for years and years, I couldn't see it. I couldn't hear it. No one I knew was talking about it. So basically, I just want to stand on the top of some really big thing and scream really loud and get as much people's attention as I possibly can. And thanks to social media, I have a platform. Unfortunately, my Instagram account just got deleted because I do talk about some stuff that's confronting, and it brings up stuff for people.
Right.
Yeah. So, I'm restarting that, and I'm trying to get it back anyway. But yeah, I now coach men mostly. I do work with some women, but I mostly coach men around, connecting their cock to their heart. Like can you honor this animal part of you that wants to fuck the entire world and wants to ravish and kill and destroy? How can we tap into that and honor that and allow that space to move? Because let's be honest, we all love it. Like, I love it when I'm in it. Women that I'm with love it when I'm in it. But when they feel safe, when it comes from that, when they know that they can say stop at any moment, and it's not overriding boundaries, it's not overriding the no that they may feel. So being able to connect to the heart, knowing that at any moment you're on the verge of control, like you're in control, but you're kind of, what's fun is the part that's being out of control, and you're not going to know that until you play in the two. And that's also the in control of the heart. We try to be in control of the heart, so we build barriers around it so we don't feel. But actually removing that and being on the edge of the fear from the heart intimacy of, like, holy shit, if I say one more sentence, if I really express this thing that I don't want to express, will they love me? That edge there is also where intimacy is created. So learning to play in the extremes of is, for me, what creates the wild, phenomenal, chaotic, like, inexpressible forms of love that we deep down, I'm not going to say all, but most of us yearn for. Because we live in these boring fucking lives where we do the same thing every fucking day for 60 years. And, like, it's needed. But how do we create the life that we want inside of that? Like, how can we create more intimacy, more depth, more passion, more fire in this life that we live, repetitively, having families and having day jobs?
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. The question is so valid. And when we speak to people and we say, what's missing, it's passion, it's fire, everything that you just mentioned. Passion, fire, being ravished, being in the animal. And then there's the discrepancy, like, women, since they watched that movie, 50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey.
They read the book, 50 Shades of Grey, which both were not, in my opinion, not great. But at least it gave people a taste for it. It activated, some new desires. But then, and then men are like, I wasn't brought up like that. I can't do that. I don't know if I couldn't, I'd be afraid. And so everyone's still got these fears, and for some women, they're like, well, if I tell him this is what I really want, he's not going to love me because he's going to think I'm weird. And a lot of men are saying to me, well, if I do that to her, what she's asking for, she's going to be scared, and it's going to scare me. So we're living again. I mean, it's just like whatever the paradigm is, people start to settle for these really boring lives, and yet they're inside, they're loathing their choices. So so you're coaching men, and I mean, give us an example of like what you're saying to them. Like, what kinds of men come to you?
Oh, every type of man. So I run 2 programs, one called Shameless Sex God and one called Priests of Phallic Power. Shameless Sex God is on the back burner right now. I just finished running it again. And in that I had, they were all Australian. I had an ex-bikie gang member. I had 2 guys that worked out in the mines. I had an aged care worker. I had, what else did I have? I had a guy from the BDSM scene, in that BDSM and kink field. There's no, and I just had and I had a regular guy, just works in the office. So and this is what I love, when I got into coaching, I signed up to a thing and they were like, what's your niche? And I was like, men. And they were like, what's your niche? I was like, men. And this is the thing. It's just like, it's generally older men, to be honest, generally men over 35, because they're kind of at a point where they realize that they've missed something, like they've realized that the education they've had or the awareness that they've been brought up with is lacking in some area. And they're finally at a point where they can acknowledge it. They're past their I know everything stage. And they're like, actually, I'm humble enough to find out more information around things that I don't know. So it's generally older men, 35, 40 plus, but men that have, been sexually abused, or men that have been emotionally abused by women and have a very hard time opening up to them because they're afraid that they'll be ridiculed or judged or shamed, typically speaking, men that have some form of, I don't like to use the word trauma, but let's say trauma, or at least really negative experience in relationships or in sex.
Yeah.
And they have something there that they, are unaware of. And, it's some of it's very basic, but some of it's quite deep. Like just teaching them how to communicate their feelings and teaching them how to, and also what the truth is. I work with one guy, and, his desire, he's like, I want to be in an orgy and I want to fuck lots of people and I want to do this, right? And it's like pretty standard desire. Most men have that desire. It's something that we all, and probably some women too. And it's like, I've had that desire for ages. And I was like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do an action step. What can you do this week to move towards that? And he froze. Yeah. And he went into complete freeze. He was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, if it's a desire, let's move in towards this desire. Like, go organize it, go find a sex party that you can go to. And he went into complete freeze and shut down. And I've had this exact same experience. I've been in a group environment where there was basically an orgy happening and I could not move. I went into complete freeze and shut down, like, because my, let's say, inner child or my inner feminine, whatever you want to call it, got scared. Because actually my desires were fueled by my fantasies, which were fueled by the concept of what makes a man. And my truth was actually a far cry from that, And it's not to say that I would not enjoy a group sex activity, but there has to be heart. For me, there has to be love and heart. It can't just be just like, I can't not know anyone. And I'm not shaming anyone where that's okay for them. If that's maybe them getting into their animal more, that's fine. But I'm not there personally. Yeah. So it's also peeling. Yeah. It's also peeling away the layers of what we think is real and to find out what is real.
Yeah, exactly. I understand. In the old days, for me, I could have a one night stand, and it'd be like really hard for me to do that now.
Yeah,
just like not, anonymous kind of one night stand. Yeah, that was good. And can you leave before morning? Yeah, I don't think I could do that anymore. There has to be some connection. It's something. We know this man Xavier. And Xavier once said, you know, before I'm going to have sex with anybody, he said, I want to make sure they're going to be in my life in some way.
Yeah.
He said, they don't have to be my lover, my ongoing partner, my ongoing anything, but I wanted to make sure there is some loving connection there. So you're saying that, and, you know, let's say it again, you know, because women have a misconception about that when it comes to men. Women think that men could just keep doing it over and over again with no connection. And here you are, a guy who's been a party guy, a guy who's, you know, been all the things that guys are brought up to be, and you're saying, no, if it's no heart, I'm not interested in it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for saying it.
Yeah, and I went through a lot of shame acknowledging that. And I still feel it now sometimes, you know, being with a beautiful woman who, you know, wants to take things further, and I need to say no. I need to say, like, I'm sorry, I'm a no right now. I don't want to do this. Like, there's still a part of me, especially Tyran Mowbray, the shameless sex god, the whatever, like, fucking label that people give me. It's like, but that's the shame part. The shame is not the part where it's like, I can fuck all day and I can do this and I will lick your ass and I will like anal and all that stuff. That's not the shame. There's shame there. Don't get me wrong. You know, a lot of men have a lot of stuff around their asshole and anal play. But the deep, for me, the deep shame, the stuff that is really, really hard to acknowledge is the tender softness of a man's heart that he is too afraid to acknowledge, because that is death. That is emotional death. That is heartbreak. That is pain beyond anything he can handle. He can handle physical pain, but he can't handle emotional pain. And so, no way, I'm not going there.
Well, I so admire you. I so acknowledge you. I so I applaud what you're saying, and it needs to be said. It needs to be heard in the world, which is, you know, I'm excited that you're on this show, because at least 100,000 people will listen to this.
Ooh.
You know, at some point in the near future, when people download, I don't ever know when they're going to listen, but there are 100,000 downloads a month. So someone somewhere in the world is going to listen to this. You know, a woman said to me last night in New York City, you know, I listened to your podcast. I've been listening to it for years. I don't know her. You know, it was great to hear. So I know she's going to hear this.
Right. Hello to you.
Yeah, you know who you are. You were in New York City. You came to my talk. So, you know, it's Tyran, it's so great. It's so great to hear you say it. It warms my heart. And again, I just say to you, it gives me hope. Like, it gives me hope because I know who you are. I know how you look. I know how you be. And your rawness of stating your emotions and being who you are, which is playful and loving and fun and also very serious, having had heartbreak after heartbreak, who you are and that rawness is something that's needed and necessary in the world. It's so authentic. So thank you. Yeah, thank you. All right, so we're going to cut now to our next segment. We're going to take a short break here. When we come back, we'll tell people how to get in touch with you. And maybe you have a tip that you could give to the listening audience, especially one if they're a man listening. Just so you know, my listeners are about 60% women, 40% men. It is a little bit of an older audience, and but women are connected to men, and they say to men,
absolutely.
Listen, you know, so some men don't find it on their own. They won't find you by themselves, but some women will say, hey, I heard this guy. Yeah. And this is just a show for you. So
I would say 70 to 80% of my male following have been recommended by their women, by either their partners or girlfriends or just a friend that's a girl. Like, they've been tagged or commented or shared to them privately. Like, my mentorship starts in a week, and nearly every man that I spoke to is like, oh yeah, my friend tagged me in your post. You know, so yes, even though predominantly women are the main following of sexuality and stuff, they are trying to help the men in the world. And
They are.
One, thank you so much, women. I appreciate that. And two, keep doing it, because we need your fucking help, because we're too stupid to look for it ourselves.
All right, we're going to take a short break again. So, if you just tuned in, this is Sex and Happiness. This show today is all about that, like getting so miserable that you had to find a way to get happy. And we're going to give you information on how to get in touch with Tyran and also to find out about his 2 programs and see if we have a little tip in there as well. So we'll be right back.
So many times you've heard Laurie talk about emotional release on this show. She says over and over again how important it is for you and your loved ones. Now you can do emotional release in the privacy of your own home. And you can practice Ladi Han too, meditation that prepares you for making love in the unknown. In her CD, Shamanic Release and Ladi Han, she creates a safe and sacred space in which you can do the powerful work Laurie is known for in her Butterfly Workshops courses. Laurie sets you up with the proper positioning and breathing. Then she guides you through each emotional state to the beat of tribal African rhythms. This CD actually provides an easy way to do emotional clearing work on a regular basis. Order your copy of Shamanic Release and Ladi Han today and watch your relationships walk free of emotional baggage. To order your copy, go to butterflyworkshops.com right now.
As a sex and happiness coach, I understand that increased sexual participation intensifies sexual responsiveness and desire, as well as overall health and well-being. My experience with the Sybian has personally increased my sexual response, and I can now train women to use this machine to have peak orgasms as often as possible. I strongly believe this will add to their health and well-being whether they have a partner or not. The beauty and the miracle of the human body is that it adapts and changes much more rapidly than people change their beliefs or their opinions. The Sybian can make any woman's body more resilient with each peak orgasm. Sybian is an amazing experience, often described as the Lamborghini of sex toys. If you're a woman and you can get yourself to look at Sybian, you should do so. It won't take away from your partner. It will only add. Trust me on this. I love my Sybian. Go to Sybian.com. That's SYBIAN.com, or call 1-800-253-6135. That's 800-253-6135. And say Laurie Handlers told you about Sybian. And by the way, if you do have a partner, ask about Venus for Men. That's Venus, VENUS, for men.
We are back, Sex and Happiness, and this is Laurie Handlers. This is our 3rd segment and last segment with Tyran Mowbray. And Tyran, so one of the programs is Shameless Sex Gods, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you said you put that on the back burner for a little while, but once people hear of it on this show and some other social media that you're going to get, you may have to bring it out again.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
Priests of Phallic Power.
Okay, and talk a little bit about that one.
So that is a 6-month mentorship. So what I found was by offering Shameless Sex God, which is like a 10-week thing, it's a lot of information, it's a lot of content, and it's a lot for the men to absorb when a lot of it is pretty new for them. So what I did was I created a mentorship, a 6-month thing. And actually, have you had Janine on the show? You know Janine, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So she has a womb apprenticeship, right? And it's the moment I heard of it, I was like, what's the equivalent for men? Why do women get a 9-month womb apprenticeship? What do men get? I'm very much about equality. And so it took 18 months, but finally this Priest of Phallic Power came through. And it's exactly what I said at the start. It's connecting men to the power of their cock and their animal and their beast and their warrior and all the parts that are associated with this more, let's say, dark masculine, but also learning that when that's connected to the heart and we can open the heart, that's when we live a life of sex and happiness and passion and devotion and nurturing and nourishment. It's like, because one without the other, it's flat.
Yeah.
You know, it's polarized. It's stuck in one side. So, and I thought about it, I was like, well, how long did it take me to overcome premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction or porn addiction or anything like that? So it took more than 3 weeks. It took more than 1 month. It was a journey. It took time. And the thing that took the longest was I didn't have anyone supporting me. I was trying to do it all on my own. I was too scared to talk to anyone. So it's 6 months, because if you're serious about changing and you really want to like evolve and learn stuff, it takes time. And so what it does is it gives you 6 months of integration, 6 months of practicing something all the time to put it in your everyday life, to see how that feels for you. And if you want to change something, you can. And if you want to keep going with something, you can. Because change takes time. If you're 40 years old, you've been conditioned to think and feel and respond to your environment for 40 years. So it's going to take a little bit of time to reshift some of that. Not only takes one key experience, but the integration process after that is gradual, So basically, each man gets one exercise a week. It's done in a group environment. So we're all there supporting each other, sharing, growing, learning on a Facebook group. And I give one exercise a week, and you just get to do that exercise a week and see what comes up for you. What happens? What's your experience? How do you learn from it? Do you not want to do it? Like, what's your resistance? Whatever it is. And then you share that in the group. You do a Facebook Live, so you have to be seen and be heard, and all the things that scare us as men, talking about weird stuff that we don't normally communicate about. And that's it. So it's one exercise a week. And then every month we have a video call where we all get together, and I facilitate some experiences and some practices in front of each other to be witnessed, to be the witnesser, again, to practice communicating and stuff. And it's 6 months long, and it's a mentorship. It's very much your own personal journey in a group environment.
Yeah.
And we do tantric practices, Taoistic practices, some weird shit that I made up because I think it works. We do, some embodiment stuff. We do, lots of different things.
Sounds wonderful. Sounds really, really wonderful. And to say, how excited I am about it, I can't tell you. I mean, when I saw you, it's about 1.5 years ago in Glastonbury, England, and I said, you're the hope. You're my hope. No, I don't know about that. But you are. There's this authenticity that you have, and there's a daring. And so the daring to be all that, and then to have other people, to dare them to show up. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. Yeah. It takes balls. So, so how do they get in touch with you? How do they find you?
Right now, Facebook, Tyran Mowbray, I have a Facebook page. Tyran Mowbray, it's where I do my Facebook Lives and my content and everything. So check that out. Instagram, so trying to reactivate my deactivated account. That one's called Shameless Sex God, but it's deactivated, so you can't find it. Otherwise, Priest of Phallic Power, that's my new one. It's only 3 days old, so but it's gonna, I'm gonna get it back. I'm gonna build it up again. But the content's the same, like I've obviously, it's a death, it's another death. It's like, well, that was my identity. I was the Shameless Sex God, or I was that Instagram account. It's like, well, I'm trying to get it back, but at the same time, am I going to let that stop me from continually doing my thing? And the answer is no. So, so they're my two ways. Or you can contact at tyranmowbray.com, send me an email. I do get a lot of messages at the moment, so it may take a little while to respond, but feel free, get in contact. I do work with women. I'm in the process actually of creating a mixed event, like a mixed online program where men and women get the same exercise, and then we share about, our experiences, because, it's all steps, right? Men need to learn to communicate, women need to communicate, but we also need to learn to communicate to each other. So I'm in the middle of creating this mixed online program, which I think is going to be epic. and very confronting, because there will be people of both genders in there, and obviously non-binary, gay. I have quite a few gay men reach out as well, actually. So it's not only for women and men that are attracted to the opposite. It's very much sexual. This is what I love about bisexual, homosexual, pansexual, asexual, heterosexual. The common denominator is sexual. They're all sexual beings. So regardless of what you identify as or what your preference is, except maybe asexual because you don't like sex, but other than that, this information, this education is for absolutely everyone of any age, any gender, any sexuality, any religious belief.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. I want to spell your name because you have an Oz accent, and so maybe they got it and maybe they didn't. So I'm going to spell it in my New York American accent. So, so if you're going to @TyranMowbray.com, it's TYRAN, Tyran Mowbray, MOWBRAY. That's find under that name. And you should find him, everybody. So
you should.
If you listen to this show and it piqued your curiosity, it turned you on, because there's a man who was like the Marlboro Man, and then turned into somebody who could be vulnerable. Then you should look him up. And if not for you, you have friends that it is for, and so please do tell them and have them listen again and see if it turns them on, because there's definitely something here that Tyran has that I want you to have. So so Tyran, thanks so much for being my guest today on Sex and Happiness.
Absolute pleasure, Laurie. I'm really glad that I was able to jump on and share something, and thanks for having me. Thank you everyone for listening, and enjoy your sex and happiness.
Yes, absolutely. So I will be back next time with another amazing guest, and it's my goal to bring you whatever it takes to make your sex and your happiness connected, and to make your lives worth living, worth being passionate about, worth really enjoying and really feeling. That's my goal. So this is Laurie Handlers signing off for Sex and Happiness this week. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me and Tyran. I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today for Sex and Happiness. To learn more about Laurie and her work, please go to butterflyworkshops.com or follow her on Twitter or Facebook. You can send her an email at sexandhappiness@gmail.com. We'll see you again right here next week for another edition of Sex and Happiness.